Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Inuit, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. I'd like to introduce the panel, the secretary and the assessor this afternoon. Joining us via Zoom is Lynn Nesbitt and Richard Whitbread. I'll be sitting as chair today. My name is Mike Trubio, and representing the assessment department this afternoon is Ryan Valderrama, and our administrative personnel this afternoon is Fran Picotto. To the participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it's your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We'll be hearing application for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 2 through 4 on our docket today. Ms. Picotto, please affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony. Thank you.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Ryan Valderrama.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And just as a quick item to start, I understand that you guys are still, both of you have been speaking to each other about these properties, I'm assuming, yes?
That's correct.
And you've not come to an agreement on the valuation still?
We exchanged some notes this morning. I haven't heard back from Ryan, but I imagine that we're still at an impasse.
Mr. Vanderama, let's see if we can get things going with 171 Donwood Drive. Your presentation at this time, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first property or The property that we're dealing with has a file number of 24-4183. The property has a roll number of 04-001-907-500. The property is located at 171 Donwood Drive. We're dealing with the roll year of 2025 using reference date of April 1st, 2023. The assessed value is $7,722,000. It is classified as an institutional property with a taxable school exempt of liability. The property is a nursing home. It has 2 stories with 1 section. It was built in 1977. Has a masonry bearing walls with an average wall height of 10 feet. The zoning is multi-family. It has a land area of 64,576 square feet, a planned area of 30,523 square feet, and a basement area of 8,729 square feet. It also has a gross floor area of 101,162 square feet. On the next page, page 2, is the aerial photo of the subject property. And on the next page is the cost valuation summary. It has a replacement, or the building has a replacement cost new of $16,082,752. It has an accrued depreciation of about $9,648,752, giving it a depreciated cost of $6,434,000. It also has a depreciated cost for detached structures, which is valued at $10,000. The total depreciated cost for both building and detached structures amount to $6,444,000. Adding the land value of $1,278,000, we have a total value of $7,722,000. On the next page is the cost summary by building section. And on page 5 are some land comparables. And I have 4. Attached 4. The first one is located at 1261 Lee Boulevard. It was sold back in June 4th, 2015 for about $23.07 per square foot. The next one is located on Bison Drive. It was sold on August 8th, 2014 for about $22.66 per square foot. The third one is located on Old Commonwealth Path. It was sold on August 31, 2016 for about $26.95 per square foot. And the last one is located on Morningstar Lane. It was sold on November 1st, 2019 for about $22.72 per square foot. On the next page is some details of what the detached structures are. And just below it is the land valuation. It has a net area, or the land has a net area of 64,576 square feet with a net rate of $19.79 per square foot, giving it a land value of $1,278,000. And on page 7 is the class and liability allocation. There's only one class and liability allocation on this property, Mr. Chair. It's only institutional and taxable school exempt. And on page 8, or starting page 8, is where the 2025 cost report for the subject property is. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is there not an additional bit of evidence that you sent in? It says evidence additional.
Yes, which is applied. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for reminding me. It's for all the files that are for today's docket. It is the decision, Manitoba Municipal Board decision on 1 Falcon Ridge, which highlights or which is a test case for nursing home. And there are some. This is the decision that was that the municipal board has come up with regard to nursing home methodology on valuation or assessment methodology for nursing homes, Mr. Chair.
And you both agree in general that that decision has been used to modify some of the valuations done on nursing homes at this point, sir?
Yes, sir. That is quite accurate, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
That's your submission then, sir?
Yes, thank you. That's correct.
Mr. Newfield, questions at this point?
Yes, yes, sorry, just wanted to, sorry, I just noticed something and it's gonna take me a few seconds to figure this out.
Go
Um,
ahead.
oh, okay, how many, rooms are in here, bedrooms?
I am not sure or unaware of how many bedrooms there are in this building or facility, Mr. Chair.
Oh, you don't track that in your cost summary? Um,
Uh,
okay.
no, none. It's the total area of the building that's tracked in the cost report and in the evidence that I have.
Um, so I'm just looking at it here that I believe there are, okay, I don't have it either. I was concerned about this because I was looking at your land sales and you've used all RMFS. And do you know the density that RMFS permits?
Uh, I don't memorize it or I don't have it on top of my head, and yeah, I don't have that information with me. The only reason why I use RMFS for my land sale comparable, well, one of the reasons why I used it is because the subject property has the same zoning as RMFS.
Right. No, but so you're then, I'm not going to lead here because we should all know this. RMFS is a designation that allows, I'm trying to think how many beds per, I mean, how many rooms how many square feet per room is permitted to, right, there's a designation on that, correct?
Um, Without the zoning information in front of me, I wouldn't be able to answer the question whether it's right or wrong.
Okay.
Yes, there is there are numbers in it in terms
But
of density, but I'm not I don't memorize it or it's not on top of my head right now.
okay, are all four of these sales developed to apartment blocks?
Apartment blocks. I wasn't able to follow through on what development happened in these four sales, Mr. Chair.
Pardon me?
I wasn't able to follow through or follow up on what happened on these sales after the fact.
Okay. Um, on your Marshall and Swift costing, do you have the details of you've used a code, and I'm looking now on your page 8, you've used a Marshall and Swift code of 710, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And just maybe tell the board what that means, 710 in general terms?
Well, it says retirement community complex, which is also part of the proceed when there was a proceeding on One Falcon Ridge. It is in the decision, or it is in the written up in the decision that one of the
What,
witnesses have mentioned 710.
sorry, maybe I didn't ask a good enough question there. I just wanted you to explain to the board was what Marshall and Swift costing is all about. They give you you plug in a number, a square footage, you call it a code 710, and it spits out a number, right?
It spits out the cost
Yeah.
by using this code, and then it spits out a certain rate per square foot.
Now, when you added elements below, you added a passenger and freight elevators in there, correct?
Yes, that was in the records, correct.
And who added that?
I'm not sure. It was already in our records prior prior to me being
But I guess
prior to the hearing or even prior to when I became a cost assessor.
in order to have it displayed today, would you have to tell the Marshall and Swift system that you want elevators?
Well, we enter whatever
It's your
whenever
entry
we
though,
see
right?
during inspections and all that, yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Now, do you have the copy of the manual in front of you by any chance?
No, I don't, sorry.
Are you aware that code 710, and I'm looking at it right now, includes the elevator in the base cost?
I am not aware, no. It's not in
Okay.
front of me, or the Marshall and Swift is not in front of
No,
me.
and I understand. I wasn't planning on making this, I should have caught this in rebuttal, but I didn't. But I can ask you the question. So you're not aware that 710, there's a mark here, base costs of buildings marked with an asterisk include elevator costs. And when you go up to the inclusions, there's an asterisk. So is it possible that these were double counted?
I am not sure, no, without looking in the details, no, I'm not sure, no.
Okay. And I think that was what about the location of your land sales? Are any of these located in close proximity to the subject?
No, they're not.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newfeld. Mr. Whitbread, would you to ask questions at this point? You're muted, sir.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Ms. Nesbitt, any questions at this time?
Yeah, just following up on Mr. Newfeld's question, I'm looking also at page 8.
Okay.
Is
on
there a way from under the commercial 710 retirement community complex, is there a way to determine if the elevators are double counted, or because I am seeing element, I'm seeing base cost and then elevators underneath that. So I'm wondering if they are indeed double counted, and can you tell by looking?
No, but just by looking at this report, no, I'm unable to determine whether there's double counting or
Okay.
not.
Okay. Okay, thank you then. I have no additional questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I do not have any further questions. Mr. Newfeld, I notice that you do not have a brief today. What would you like to tell us about this afternoon, sir? You're muted, Mr. Newfeld?
Probably doing you a favor being muted.
No, do me a favor, sir. We need to hear from you, sir.
The process that we're dealing with, Ms. Ryan and myself, began in 2016. And I was hired by WRHA to do a review of all of their assets. And we noted some discrepancies in the cost approach on the PCH. It took us until 2022 to bring this to municipal board. Now, in rebuttal, you have a copy of that order, and it's also in the assessor's information. So the process we've undertaken in trying to resolve all these is we're not disputing value on a general basis. What we are disputing is how closely the assessments are following a board order, which we took to be a test case. And by prior understanding, I had told the assessor that we are not going to be submitting evidence. What we were going to do is submit rebuttal in regard to that particular board order. And that's, we only have, well, actually now 3 points of contention that we can go over quite quickly rather than going through a line item detail on all of these properties.
Fair enough. You have that information to be sent to you, sir?
I forwarded it 24 hours before the hearing, so I hope you have it.
I do not.
We have,
Oh, is this about the rebuttal?
yes,
Yeah.
this rebuttal.
Yeah, I will send it right now.
Okay.
One moment, please.
While you're waiting for that, you could review the assessor's additional evidence. That's the board order, and I'll point out the specific clauses while we wait for it to show up. That we're dealing with. So if you're looking at his evidence, this is the board order that both myself and Mr. Valderrama went to hearing with, and we each represented our particular parties, so we're familiar with all of this. On the page one of it is the people that showed up for the appellant. There's myself, Mr. Mercury was legal counsel, Ken Collinger was regional director at the time, and he is an architect by trade. Lori Cerchetti was the manager of the Simpkin Center, which is our test case. Ron Wilkes was, his initials are basically that he's an instructor on Marshall and Swift. And
Mr. Neufeld, may I interrupt you? Sorry. Well, you're obviously looking at a document.
It's what the assessor had. Oh, I'm starting this rolling. It's called additional evidence, AT&T, November 28th, additional evidence.
Bear with me. I have additional information for board.
Okay, additional, might be additional information.
Files number 243980. Like
Yeah, it says additional
files.
information.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And so you're in that document, are you?
Yes, I am.
You didn't mention that.
Well, I also provided it, but we're waiting for it to be downloaded. So filling in some time so we can get out of here and finish this off.
Yeah, so I have that additional information. I don't have anything else in rebuttal, just this document. So
Oh, it's gonna come.
and you want us to go into this document?
It's the same thing I have provided. So I'm now referring to the document itself, page 1, and introducing the people who appeared. And I mentioned at the bottom of page 1 of the documents, page 1, the Ken Collinger, the shared health representative, who is an architect. Then further down is Ron Wilkes, who teaches Marshall and Swift. That's the automated valuation model that the assessor uses for cost. And he's a certified teacher of Marshall and Swift. He testified. And the last one was Taylor Weeb with Gateway Construction, and they had built a few personal care homes, and they provided some costing information. And then on page 2, you'll see that Ryan was there with Ryan Dupuy, and it laid out the issues that we were looking at. Now, the findings are really what we're focusing on are 2 of the major 3 issues. But the major issue was resolved in that the assessment department had been using the wrong code for replacement cost value for personal care homes. In 2007, National Building Code took personal care homes and took them from Class A down to Class B. In other words, took them down from hospital to apartment block. It's as simple as that. And essentially the costs are much lower because they're not built as hospitals. That was the major finding of this particular case. Now, that has been followed by the assessor in his workup. They have now changed their code to 710 retirement home, which is basically an apartment. So that issue has been resolved, and the issues that have been outstanding now have to regard the depreciation and the land valuation methodology. Now, the layout for the depreciation is on page 19. So page 19 is what the board decided on for a depreciation model. Now, they decided on this after just making the change to a lower classification. And this coincides with actually the Marshall and Swift depreciation tables, which once you see my rebuttal evidence, you'll see that they line up perfectly. And I should have turned the stupid phone off. The depreciation table, just to give you an idea of how these work on page 19, is this was 3 years that were heard. So if you look at reference date 2014, in that year, the building was classified as being 15 years old, and with a 45-year life that indicated a 14% depreciation for 35.4% of the area. The newer portion, 7 years in a 45-year life cycle, indicating a 5% depreciation on 64.6%. This then was worked out to 8.2%. This is this particular building. Our building, we only have 1 year, so it's a lot less complicated than this. As I said, I will then show you where these numbers came from. And that is what they ordered. So 45-year life and the date, which was the date from construction to the reference year. Now, I disagreed with that because I believe it should have been the fiscal year. They ruled otherwise, and that's fine. We agreed we'd follow their order, and we said, well, we'll live with it. The next issue that they looked at was the value of land, and that discussion was on page I didn't find this yesterday either.
22.
22? Okay.
21 in the board order, I believe.
Okay.
The land value, and then goes on to page 22 of the.
Right.
board
Okay.
edition.
Yeah. So we came to land value. Now, we had a little bit of confusion in this discussion yesterday, and perhaps disagreement. Mr. Valderrama can speak to that himself later. But the concept that was put forward was on page 22, second paragraph. It is likely that a PCH motivated by affordability considerations rather than profitability considerations for development would gravitate toward the lower cost properties. And what that means in common plain language is they can't afford to compete with the rest of the market who are putting up apartment blocks. They got to find cheaper land, and they wouldn't put it in a place where the land is expensive. They would look for places that are a bit off the beaten path and not as desirable for apartment usage, where they could get a better deal because their funding just doesn't allow them to buy land at $1.2 million an acre. So those are the two issues that we looked at. Initially, when we looked at the assessor's workup, in our mind, we would be thinking that if you follow the board's order, what they did is they looked at the lowest cost of land. Now, in this particular case, the assessor actually went below his comparables, and I just think that they're all superior. We put in a number, and if Ryan objects to this, I'll stop talking. But there was some discussion on what constituted a value for land that some of the other properties that were resolved at were settled at. That's the number I picked. It's inappropriate to talk about settlements because settlements don't equal value, but that's what happened in real life. And so now I don't know if you have my document now, by any chance?
Yes.
Oh.
shown applicant rebuttal for 171 and 44 Furby, correct?
Correct. So I don't know, I believe they merged them, but there's now 2 pages we can look at on this. I'm not sure the numbering, but one starts, it has a chart where the top label is depreciation.
That would be page 1, yes.
Page 1, okay. So I was talking earlier about the table that's in the board order. And if you look at this depreciation table, this is from Marshall and Swift. It shows the page number, section 9, page 24, and the December 2022 Marshall and Swift. Really, that's not relevant because this depreciation table has not changed in decades. This is what they use. Following column 45 down and matching up the year indicates exactly what the board specified. So we know for certain that they approved a 45-year life with the Marshall and Swift depreciation, which was the testimony that was applied at the time. So all we're doing is following through on that concept. So in the case of Donwood on the next page, that would then indicate a fully depreciated property, 45 out of 45 years. They actually have it at 70. Sorry, Donwood is 46 years old. So actually, I might have been pushing that. It looks like it's 78% was what the indicating was. We can easily change that. It should be 78% on the original construction. That's what Marshall and Swift shows. And the assessor, of course, on my page 2, you can see the top row indicates what the assessment was set at, 60% depreciation, and in red was the change I'm requesting. And that should be 78%. And on the land value, the assessment was at 1979 a square foot. Consistent with all the other agreements made, we were requesting 1657 per square foot. And considering where this is located, I think that's a very reasonable request. It might even be lower, but we're going to live with what we agreed to. However, after noting today that the elevator costs, 216,263 were doubled up, that would actually indicate a lowering of value by 43,000. That's the depreciated amount. I'm not going to change that because I put in 80% instead of 78%. So 2% times 6862 times 0.02 is roughly the same amount. I think I get 33,000 unless I got my decimal points wrong. So that this is how it should be done based on the order. So that indicates a value of, for the improvement, 32,16,554 for the land, 1,070,064 total assessment, 4,286,618. I guess round that to 4,287,000 to follow the order. That's my rebuttal and request for value.
Well, the rounded number for that, Mr. Neufeld, would be 4,287,000, correct?
That's correct. And sorry, I want to point out one more thing. I told you we've been working on this from 2016. Donwood only joined our program this year. So a lot of the other properties that we've been working through and the changes have been made have been somewhat permanent. This is the first crack Donwood has at being fully reviewed. And that's why the request for change is relatively large.
Now, there's quite a position difference between the two, Mr. Neufeld. The assessor, I think, was using 60% you're at 80% depreciation for the building,
Yes.
strictly on age.
Yeah, the Marshall and Swift is not an age life mechanism. Appraisers would use age life based on we would make an estimate of remaining economic life and then do an age life on it. What Marshall and Swift does is a sort of a sawtooth method where depreciation impacts the property, values decline, then there's an assumption some capital is put in, which extends the remaining economic life. This is the system they work with. In the long run, the numbers are going to come out relatively similar. But as I said, this is what the board decided. So I don't have an issue with their method, with that part of their methodology.
All right. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yeah, yes, it does.
Thank you very much. Mr. Valderrama, do you have questions of Mr. Neufeld at this time?
More of a response to with regard to the depreciation and land valuation. As we've discussed this intensively yesterday, and I just wanted to make a summary or make it as short as I could, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Try and
So,
form it into some questions for him, please.
It's not. It's more of a commentary, or maybe a rebuttal to the rebuttal, kind of. But not really. It's more of, I would just like to direct the board on page 19, which is what Mr. Neufeld was referring to, Mr. Chair, and also page 22 or partly 21, towards the end of 21 and 22. First thing is the page 19. Just wanted to highlight that the board, it says the paragraph just on top of the
Can you
table
just give me
here.
a minute to get that document up,
Yeah,
please?
for sure.
Thank you. Sorry, I have
It's
so many
my-
documents open right now.
If I may, it's the title is November 28, 2024 evidence. What's the title on this one? Additional information, I believe.
Okay, and what page? Sorry.
Page 19.
Of the decision, correct?
Yes, the municipal board decision on One Falcon Ridge.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And there's a table at the bottom and the paragraph just on top of it. I just wanted to reiterate what the board has written in this order, and it says the board will apply the assessor's depreciation methodology. In this case, Mr. Chair, there's the methodology that was applied here is very similar to what was applied in the subject property, and it's a straight up age depreciation on in this one, in One Falcon Ridge, and on these on the subject property. Just to sum it up, Mr. Chair, and on the second point, on page 21 towards the end, the last two lines of page 21. So if I may quote or read through it, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Is everyone there? Okay. The assessor estimated land value through an investigation of comparable land. So basically, it only says that I did a site-specific analysis based on my comparable land sales. That's just it. And according to my analysis, I have determined that the land value that I should present and that what I am recommending is higher than what the model-derived valuation on land has shown. So, and then if I may continue, the board notes that these values were higher than the original land value assessments. Naturally, when I looked at the land sales in my analysis, the land value for One Falcon Ridge should have been increased. However, the board decided to go with the original assessed land values, which are all model derived. So it means, in my view, the process or the methodology for land valuation would fall on the assessors, whatever the assessor presents. I'm sure Mr. Neufeld wouldn't agree to it, but It's just my view, Mr. Chair, that the land valuation methodology is how the original assessment on land valuation for One Falcon Ridge was determined. So in that case, it is the model derived land valuation, which was based on a lot of sales around the city, Mr. Chair. And I think that's just my comment or reaction. I'm not sure how I would categorize these statements that I've made today, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. No further questions then, Mr. Valderrama?
I have none, Mr. Chair. No.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nesbitt, questions of Mr. Neufeld?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Whitbread, questions of Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, just clarify, Mr. Neufeld, what number did you use for your value of the land, the dollars per square foot? Have you got that handy?
Yeah, it's in red, page 2, rebuttal, $16.57.
Thank you.
That's 721,789 per acre.
Good, thank you. That's all. I have no other questions.
Thank you very much. And I have no further questions either. That being said, I think do we need any summation from either side, gentlemen?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
You just save it for after the last one, if I have anything.
Yeah, fair enough. With that, we will move on to the next property, sir. Gentlemen, I should say. And that is 44 Furby.
Before you start, I think we have 3 for today, and I should have told you earlier that 131 Aberdeen, we will be requesting it to be confirmed. So it's just the 2 of them today that we're dealing with.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neufeld. We will take that in the next, after we're done with this quickly, we'll just make it go through. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Valderrama, can we hear from you on this particular property, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the next one has a file number 24-3908. The property has a roll number of 12-090-331-700. The property is located at 44 Furby Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2025 using reference date of April 1st, 2023. The property has a split assessment. The first one has an assessed value of $238,000 with a classification of institutional property with a liability of fully exempt. The next assessment has an assessed value of $11,957,000 with a classification of institutional property and a liability of taxable school exempt. So this property is a nursing home with 1 to 3 stories, 2 sections, 1999 as effective year built, a masonry bearing walls for construction class with an average wall height of 12 feet. It is zoned as EI or educational and institutional. It has a land area of 56,920 square feet, a planned area of 22,795 square feet, a basement area of 5,000 square feet, a gross floor area of 72,909 square feet, and on the next page, sorry, Mr. Chair, on the next page is the aerial photo of the subject property. And on the next page, page 3 is the cost valuation summary. The building has a replacement cost new value of $12,044,344. It has accrued depreciation of about $2,054,344. Therefore, the depreciated cost of the building is $9,990,000. And adding the land value of $2,205,000, we have a total value of $12,195,000. On page 4 is where the cost summary by building section is located, and on page 5 is the land sales. The first one is located at 600 Mandalay Drive. It was sold on February 22nd, 2021 for about $49,000 $38.51 per square foot. The second comparable is located at 250 Center Street. It was sold on June 6, 2022 for about $29.26 per square foot. And on the third comparable, it is located on Ballantrae Drive. Excuse me. It was sold on December 3, 2021 for about $30.43 per square foot. And the fourth sale is located at 420 Chrisland Street. It was sold on November 4, 2022 for about $31.69 per square foot. And on the next page is the land valuation. The rate that was used is it was a split land valuation. The first one is a 40S with a net area of 55,782 square feet, and the net rate is $38.74 per square foot, giving it a land value of $2,161,000. The next land valuation is a 40E, or an institutional exempt. It has a net area of 1,138 square feet and a net rate of $38.66 per square foot, giving it a land value of $44,000. On the next page is the class and liability allocation for both the building and the land. And on page 8 is where the cost report is for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Catching up here a moment. Those percentages are based on the actual areas of the building, correct?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get that, Mr. Chair. What was that?
The percentage that you used on the land valuation, 98% and 2%, those are based on the specific areas of the land.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Sorry. Being pointed out to me, Mr. Neufeld, that in fact we have class and liability also being under appeal at this point. I'm assuming you don't have any issues with class and liability at this point, sir?
No, at the time we filed, we hadn't seen the way that the property was done up, and there were some past issues on the land liability in class. This particular assessment corrected it. So I have no evidence. I unfortunately I can't withdraw it. So just rule on it as you see fit. I have no issue with it, though.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that, please.
Yep.
Thank you. And do you have any questions of the assessor at this point, sir?
I do. First, clarify again, page 9, that the liability classifications where we have MAA22 bracket 1, that is a small I, not a large I or an L beside it. Just
It is
to line.
capital I, yeah. And
Yeah.
it is based on the 22(1)I, small I of the Municipal Assessment Act section.
Right, okay, because capital I and small I are
Yeah.
vastly different in legal terms.
Right.
I just want to clarify that's just a typo or something on there. It should have been small I, right?
It's the formatting of how the report was done up,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
So same question on back on page 8 in regard to the elevator 710. You have done an override. Someone did an override and added an elevator costs, correct?
Someone put this
Someone did an override.
prior to even me getting into the getting in the position of a cost assessor. So it's been there in our files.
I just noticed something else, and I guess I'm remiss at not doing a great rebuttal here, but foundation adjustment. Why was this put in?
I believe this is for piling, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, but if you're using Marshall and Swift, I want to refer you. I know that no one has this in front of them. Section 85, page 7 has a seismic zone. Aren't you supposed to use the seismic zones to indicate the need for a foundation adjustment?
I am unsure of that. No, I haven't heard or I'm not aware of that, Sir Chair.
And you are aware that Winnipeg is in zone 0 for seismic zones, which is the lowest category?
No, I'm not aware.
Okay. I wasn't aware myself of this factor until where our seismic zones are. I thought they were just Vancouver, but we do have some out east as well, but not in the prairies. Okay, and in regard to the land sales, these are all quite some distance away, are they not?
Yes, they are.
Like Mandalay, I guess most of us know where that is in the north west quadrant. Center Street is in Waverly West, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Ballantrae is the old sugar beet lands in Fort
I
Garry.
am not sure what it used to be, but
Okay.
Ballantrae is on Ballantrae. Yeah.
And Chrisland is located adjacent to the casino on Regent, correct?
I'm not sure the exact location, but the area it says region. Yeah.
And our subject is in West End, correct?
Yes, it is West Broadway. To be
I'm
particular.
wondering why you didn't look at the sale of another institutional piece of land, being the former Children's Hospital on Wellington Crescent, which sold twice, one in 2022, one in January 23.
I am unsure if I saw that one. So I wouldn't be able to comment why I didn't use it or why I use all of this. I didn't notice that one coming up in my
Okay.
comparables. Sorry.
But as an institutional use, a hospital use, and we're talking about a personal care home, something like that might be pretty pertinent to our discussion, would you not think?
As I mentioned, I didn't notice there's a lot of them in there. And in so choosing, I chose what's closest in terms of square footage and somehow a VRES too, in terms of a parcel use code.
Those are my only questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Whitbread, questions at this point?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nesbitt, questions?
I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I don't think I have any further questions. Thank you very much. And Mr. Neufeld, back to you, sir.
Thank you. So again, this is I don't have to repeat the preamble here. We're looking at it exactly the same way. And in this case, the property is I should actually back this up and tell you my history with this property. I was actually the one who evicted people who were living in the rented houses on Verby Street so that they could construct this personal care home. And this was about 25 years ago. One of my first jobs in real estate was evicting people for this. So my involvement goes back quite some time. The age on this is built in 99. And I see we weren't disagreeing with the assessor's workup, although he used an age here of 24 years, so that he's used the reference date rather than the physical date. I disagree, but the board ruled it. We're living with it. So 24 years old, and looking at the chart, appreciation chart on our page 1, if you take 45 years on the life expectancy, go down to 24, it's showing 31%. Now, just to bear in mind that the board order on the cost to construct did not use Marshall and Swift for the final analysis. They relied on our contractors' quotes, which were far more reliable in their final decision. So any relationship to Marshall and Swift and the costing of it is that the depreciation bears, there is none. This was their decision to use this table. So it was should be 31%, and on that basis we changed the number as indicated on the page 2 under the 44 Furby one, from 17% and in red 31%. So it makes a $1.7 million difference in the depreciated cost new. In regard, now I did not factor in. I think that the foundation adjustment, it should not have been made based on, if you're using Marshall and Swift, you're using it wrong, because that foundation adjustment is for seismic zones, not for the need for piles, because piles are almost universal for National Building Code depending on what you're building. And then of course for the use, the doubling up of the elevator costs, that would actually indicate a value that we, as I said, I missed, and it should actually indicate an original value that is about $743,000 lower. But I haven't made that submission, so I'm not going to change it now. The land value, we again used the 1657 a square foot for which was what we settled on all the rest of them at. Now, verbally, I get to introduce a bit of evidence, and you put what weight on it you want. Children's Hospital sold in 2022 for $125,000 per acre on Wellington Crescent, and that works out to $2.87 a square foot. Now, it was in the news, and they said, oh, we needed riverbank stabilization. You know, it got flipped 5 months later, 6 months later, for 2.8 million or $1 million an acre. And the only change that occurred is they got approval for building houses on it, and that's what changed the value. So this is riverbank property going for $1 million an acre across the river directly from the subject. Not directly, I'm sorry, it's a little bit off, but oh no, it's pretty close. That sale should have been considered, and considering the riverbank issue, that the adjustment downwards to 1657 is extremely reasonable. Another institutional piece of land that was a hospital, repurposed and sold for housing at $1 million an acre and on the river and with a Wellington Crescent address, which is a lot better than a Furby Street address. If I guess if you're bragging about your house location. So I think that would be fair to change it to 1657 a square foot, and that our number then works out to for the 40S 9,195,305, rounded to 9,195,000, and the class 60 we have it calculated to 12,873, rounded to 213,000, not 60. I'm sorry, that's exempt. It's I marked that wrong. The exempt 213,000. Again, who cares what the exempt property is assessed at, because there's no tax on it. But the application of this order to 44 Furby should be 9195 on the 40S. Thank you.
That gives us a rounded total of 9,408,000, Mr. Neufeld, then?
Yes.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Valderrama?
I have no further questions, and I would just like to indicate that any comments or in the previous file be carried to this file as well, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nesbitt, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Whitbread, questions at this point?
I don't, thank you.
I think I'd love to hear why, Mr. Valderrama, and sorry, I'm bouncing back to you for a moment, but why is the city using different depreciation on the building, sir?
The depreciation that's followed comes with the building code that is used, so it automatically defaults to whatever the building code's life would be, and given that it would come to the age of the building as well, Mr. Chair. So the system automatically calculates that.
Thank you very much. Those are my questions and comments. Any final summations from either gentleman?
I have none, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Neufeld?
Well, yes, in regard to Mr. Valderrama's last comments, and I understand what happened in the system, but bear in mind that we're dealing with a way to apply a board order for which we both sought the municipal board to review and decide. They didn't say the class you're using is wrong, use class 710 instead. That was not the order. The order said, we're going to use actual costs as determined by your contractor and your architect. And we actually had another expert in there that never testified, a quantity surveyor. We had 4 sources of it. That's what they chose. And I like the builder the best because he explained things better. So Marshall and Swift was not on trial. Now, the assessment department modeling system did not go out and hire a new quantity surveyor to do this work. They went back and just changed their classification. Well, you fix one problem, it's like medicine and having side effects. You created a different one. You forgot about depreciation. It was an independently derived calculation of depreciation. It was based on the Marshall and Swift 45-year life tables, period, not a class. So that's just an error in the application of the model, and we're just trying to drive it back to it so we can finalize off all of these after 8 years of work on it to get some conclusions to the personal care home operators in Winnipeg. And the last thing I want to say, and I said this yesterday too, and it's not a personal observation, it's an appraiser's observation. All funding for personal care homes in Manitoba and in Canada comes from government. There's a flat amount that each bed gets, and it's roughly $73,000, and it covers everything. Now, if the person in there has income, they have to pay the first $30,000, and then the government pays the rest. If you don't have income, government pays it all. But the point is, bad home, good home, you get the same amount of money. Yet, if you build a good home and it costs you more, you don't get more money. That's wrong. These should all be done on the income approach. And it's actually a fairly simple process because there's a capital cost allocation in the funding. It's $3,500 a bed, or it was a few years ago. It's gone up a bit. Capitalize that into value. All personal care homes get the same rate. And what is good about that is you start rewarding people who make a good home, a good personal care home, and you start penalizing the homes that are bad, that are just for profit. They take advantage of the property tax system cost approach, which gives their rundown old shacks a value of $16,000 a bed, whereas you build a good home, it's $160,000 a bed. And that's disturbing, and that's the moral message as well in there. But I'm as I said yesterday, if we're stuck with cost, let's make sure that it's applied accurately and fairly, and not arbitrarily to the personal care homes. Thank you for the time again today.
Mr. Chair, I wonder if I could redirect a question after that summary, but more pointedly back to the assessor's summary. Do you mind?
No, go ahead.
So, Mr. Valderrama, I think I heard you say that you applied the model to this case in spite of the findings of this case that Mr. Neufeld has brought forward to us in his rebuttal. Is that correct? Am I hearing you correctly?
I used the 710 code, Mr. Chair, in regard to the building code that should be applied, or that we have applied on all nursing homes, Mr. Chair. So we changed all of nursing homes. We switched them to 710 building code, and
But you
comes
did
with
not.
that is the depreciation that is inherent to that building code. So the system automatically calculated depreciation with regard to that, Mr. Chair.
Yes. So you didn't use these numbers that Mr. Neufeld has presented. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. And so did I hear Mr. Neufeld say that you've been involved in this process since 2016, attempting to negotiate these nursing home values? Is that correct?
I was involved in the actual hearing back in late 2021, and then the decision came out in 2022.
Okay, so you're fully aware of what's been found by the board. And
Yes.
so is this a personal disagreement you have with the findings of the board, and you've simply applied your personal subjective thinking to this process today?
No, I followed what the board ordered in terms of the land valuation and depreciation, if that's the main topic of discussion here.
Not talking about land. I'm talking about the building.
The building, there was a suggestion about 710. In one of the witnesses have also mentioned 710 during the proceedings. So in terms of building codes, we switched all nursing homes to 710.
And so what about these two numbers that we've got here, the 80% and the 31% for these two properties? Those are not 710, are they? They're the findings of the board.
Those are depreciation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Neufeld presented that in his rebuttal evidence.
Yes, and the way I read this, in terms of the depreciation section in the municipal board decision, assessors, what was that on page 19. So the assessor's depreciation methodology. So in my view, that the depreciation method that I used back then for one Falconridge is whatever the system has calculated for me,
Well,
and which is in that case.
Yeah, I've heard that clearly from you. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. With that, that concludes that property. And brings us to the third property on the docket, 131 Aberdeen Avenue. Now, Mr. Assessor, if we could you just read in the details of that? And I believe Mr. Neufeld, you had said you were looking to accept the numbers or confirm the numbers at this point, correct? You're muted, sir.
It's a fairly complex property, and I know perhaps I'm straying a bit off the line, but you know, the depreciation numbers were the appropriate ones when I checked it all. So I don't know what to say. We could read into evidence and could review depreciation applied on this one. We have no issue with it. So
Okay. And I'm not worrying about that. I just want to have the assessor give us the file number, the address, and the assessment, please. That's all.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mr. Valderrama, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last one has a file number of 24-3973. It has a roll number of 14001287770. It is located at 131 Aberdeen Avenue. The roll year is 2025 with a reference date of April 1st, 2023. There are 3 split assessments on this property. The first one has an assessed value of $1,454,000. with a classification of residential 2 and a liability of fully taxable. The second one has an assessed value of $1,154,000. It has a classification of institutional property and a fully exempt liability. And the third one has an assessed value of $34,280,000, and it is classified as an institutional property with a taxable school exempt for liability. It is a nursing home with 1 to 6 stories, 7 sections, and effective years built between 1973 to 2005. The construction class is masonry bearing walls with an average wall height of between 9 to 10 feet. It is zoned as RMFL or multi-family residential. It has a land area of 229,199 square feet, a planned area of 98,311 square feet, a basement area of 51,932 square feet, and a gross floor area of 358,018 square feet. And that's the summary of the property, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Neufeld, just to make sure that we've crossed all the Ts and dotted the Is, this too was appealed for both liability and so I'm just wanting to make sure that we are hearing from you that you are agreeing with the number or just to move it forward at this point, correct?
Yeah, just move it forward. I mean, it was, you can tell by looking at it, it's a longer calculation, and my review of it was I didn't see anything that was didn't follow the order, and I just asked the board, take a look at the depreciation that was used on this one, you know, and it follows the order.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, okay.
We'll go with that. With that, gentlemen, I believe we've heard all the items scheduled, and this hearing now is adjourned. So thank you very much, both of you, again, for your presentations and your patience on both sides. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have a
very
good day,
much.
everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.